I'm VJ Comey and I'm the city arborist for Burlington.
How long have you been in that position?
About 7.5 years.
Could you tell me a little bit about emerald ash borers?
Yeah, so emerald ash borer is a beetle, an invasive insect that came to the United States, I believe, in 2002. It was probably here earlier, but was first discovered around the Detroit, Michigan area. And it kills all species of ash. The beetle is very small. It flies to all species of ash trees, lays eggs in the bark crevices, high in the canopy. The eggs hatch and tiny larvae burrow in and under the bark. And over the course of their life cycle, as they're maturing, they are essentially girdling the tree from the inside out by destroying the vascular tissue of the tree and creating galleries underneath the bark.
Yeah, yeah. Are they bad?
We don't think they've done major harm in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, these are random green beetles that people have seen in the ash borer. Okay. So on the top here we have the emerald ash borer, and you can see that there's quite a range of sizes of the adult beetles, but that's what they look like. And I have on the other side of the tray, I have a whole bunch of other green beetles that people see and think that they've seen an emerald ash borer, and usually you don't see emerald ash borers because they're up in the crown of the tree and they're fairly hard to see. What you see most commonly is something like this tiger beetle, for example. If you hike on a trail, you'll see them ahead of you and they'll take off and fly before you get there, and they'll be looking back at you to decide whether they take off again. And then on the other side back over here, these are Asian longhorn beetles. They're not yet in Vermont, but they're one that we worry about because they go after maple trees and a bunch of different hardwoods. This one here is the marmorated brown stink bug. It's already in Vermont. It's more of a nuisance. They show up in your house and crash into your lights and things like that. But they are a plant pest, and we are concerned about them. And then this one here is the spotted lantern fly. That one started down in Allentown area, Pennsylvania, and has been spreading from there. They're rapid movers in terms of how they get around. They lay eggs on things, and including car trailers, and so they move up and down the highway at 70 miles an hour, and they infest new places pretty rapidly. So probably coming our way.
So we first officially confirmed it here in Burlington in July of last year. Very likely it's been here a couple of years, but until you really start to see outward signs in trees, it's hard to detect. But it's certainly been in Vermont, was first confirmed in 2018, and has been in every town in Chittenden County for the last several years. So
the adult emerald ash borer eats leaves. They don't travel terribly far, and so that's why we're not as concerned at St. Mike's. They're about 2 miles away, but they haven't gotten here yet. But the problem is when people move firewood about the place, they move pretty rapidly. And so far they're in every county in Vermont except Essex County. And so wisely the people of Essex County have not been moving any firewood in, and they have no need to do so. Hopefully we'll keep them out of Essex County for a while longer.
Well, we've been planning for the arrival of emerald ash borer since I've been here. And prior to that, my predecessor, they had, come up with an emerald ash borer management plan, in that they, researched the different options for dealing with it, got a lot of data together, etc. So we knew it was coming. When I started here as city arborist in February of 2018, the emerald ash borer was first officially detected in Vermont about 6 weeks later. So I was like, wow, we better get on this. We have an inventory software system where we track all the trees that we take care of in the city. So that includes all the trees within our right-of-ways, between the sidewalk and the road on every street throughout the city, as well as all our managed park spaces and 3 city-owned cemeteries. So using that software system, I was familiar with Burlington, but I didn't know where every ash tree was. I was able to locate every ash tree in the city. At the time, ash made up about 9.5% of our total inventoried trees. It was close to 1,200 total. about 900 and something existed in green belts. So I started going around, actually driving around the city and looking at these areas. And what I realized was that in a number of areas where we had a lot of ash trees, we actually had room within the green belts, in and amongst the existing ash trees, to start planting new trees as their eventual replacements. And that's what we're seeing here on Scarf Avenue in the South End. So we started on a robust campaign to plant new trees as eventual replacements for the ash everywhere where space permitted throughout the city. And we did that over the course of 4 to 5 years, and in doing so, we have already planted replacement trees for about 70% of our greenbelt ash, which is pretty cool. So we were really proactive. I mean, the other option is to treat the trees with an insecticide to protect against the insect every 2 years. The treatment is very effective, but it's relatively expensive, and it has to be done in perpetuity because this insect is not going away. So, you know, in order to have committed to that, we would need to know that we had the money every year from year to year. Burlington's now experiencing some serious budget issues, and probably for the foreseeable future. So even if we had committed to treating, a small percentage of our ash, we likely would not have the funds moving forward to continue that treatment. So, but you can see these are trees, and you look down the street here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 along this block, 8 or 9 trees, and they're all different species. So now we have a wide diversity of species, and some of these trees are already probably 25 feet tall. So although removing the ash was dramatic, it didn't totally make it look like a moonscape in here. And now that the ash are removed and these trees are getting more sunlight and aren't competing with the ash trees for water and nutrients, they're really going to take off. They're really well established. So, when I look down this street, I probably look at it through a different lens than the average homeowner. As the manager of the urban forest, we're looking 20 years down the road. It's not about me, it's about what's here for my grandchildren. So, by diversifying the species, and not only diversifying the species, but diversifying the age class of our trees citywide. When you're continually planting young trees, you're not having all your trees maturing at the same time. So that's really important for the long-term health of our urban forest. And by planting the diversity, we're insulating ourselves from the next insect or disease problem that comes along that's specific to one species.
Okay, so between here and the library, we have a row of ash trees, and ash trees are wonderful. And every architect that has come to the college and put up a building has said, plant ash trees, because they survive in what we call the hell strip beautifully. They grow well, and they're low maintenance trees. That's why people planted them, and that's why there's so many of them. What we're doing now is we're doing something called interplanting. We know that these trees eventually are going to be gone, and so we've planted in between smaller trees. And if you look along the line there, you'll see that we've got 9 trees planted, and we have planted 7 different species in that row. And so the goal here is to not plant a monoculture of the perfect street tree, but to plant a bunch of native trees and plant a diversity of trees. So when the next thing comes, and some other pest will come, something else will come to take out a certain tree species. When that comes, we don't want to lose 70% or 80% of our trees. We'd rather lose 5%. Of course, we'd rather lose 0, but you can't have perfection. So we plant native and we plant diverse, and that we believe is a sustainable way to move forward with our campus.
So this is a sycamore tree that was planted in anticipation of having to remove the ash here, and we planted this tree, I want to say 5 years ago, and it was quite small, and you can see what it's done. And now with all the extra sunlight and the lack of competition from the ash, it's going to fill this space very, very quickly. These sycamores get enormous.
Okay.
So
So down the row we have sycamore, we have linden, We have yellow wood, which is not exactly native, but close enough. We have, wow, that's a good question. What else have we got down there? We have red maple. We have, I'm trying to remember what we planted now. We have yellow wood. I said that. Oh yeah, we have red bud, which is a beautiful flowering tree and also native. We also have sycamore, that I mentioned that before, and we have elm. We've tried to find a variety of elm that will be resistant to the thing that takes out the Dutch elm disease. So we've got an elm that's hopefully resistant.
At one time, all our communities were lined with American elms. That was the tree of the urban tree of choice. And there are photos you can find in archives of Burlington and City Hall Park, and all the major arteries in and out of Burlington were lined with enormous American elms. And Dutch elm disease came along and wiped them all out. Unfortunately, green ash were the choice of replacement because they're a rugged urban tree and they grow very fast, but hopefully we've learned our lesson. So we're not doing that anymore. Gone are the days where we're lining our streets with one species of tree.
The tree planting decision happened for a couple of reasons. We wanted to establish a tree campus. We wanted to establish St. Mike's as a tree campus. There's only 2 in Vermont, we're one of them. And so we did that. And this is part of the Patrick and Marcel Leahy Institute for the Environment that was established on campus. And so there's a committee that includes students, faculty, staff members, and particularly members of facilities that we partner with to make sure that we're planting diverse trees on campus. And so we do the tree plantings in areas like this, areas that are less trodden, less accessed by people. We put in no-mow zones and we plant trees in those also. So the intent is to increase our native tree diversity right on campus here. And then in addition to that, we have 365 acres of our natural area across the street, and we plant a lot of trees over there. So we plant a small number of large trees on campus, and we plant large numbers of small trees over there. The biggest misconception about the emerald ash borer, wow, that's a great question. There are people who think we should cut down every ash tree in the state. I think that's a misconception. There is the possibility that there are resistant ash trees out there, and if we cut down all of our trees, like a clear-cut logging operation, then we lose the opportunity to determine if that's the case. So I think that's a big misconception. It would be nice if we could leave a certain number of trees on the landscape so that we can determine if we have some resistant trees. I wouldn't advocate for doing that on a campus or in a city where the trees might actually fall on top of cars and people, but we should certainly leave some in the woods. It's important to plant native because on a campus, in your backyard, in your churchyard, you have habitat and you have an opportunity to rebuild a food web. We're in the middle of a biodiversity crisis. We're losing native insects and therefore losing native birds. If you can actually provide some food in the form of native vegetation, you can actually increase native biodiversity by rebuilding the food web from the plants up through the bugs up to the birds. So if you like birds, you should be planting diverse native trees.
Yeah, so overall, it's been overwhelmingly positive response. I mean, it's all about education. When you start explaining to people what I just explained to you and about the need to use pesticides in the trees and then we're still, like on this street, this whole south side of the street essentially was lined with ash. So even if we retain the ash, we're still retaining a monoculture of trees. One species that could be subject to something else down the line. So it's not good long-term management. So I've spent a lot of time trying to educate the public. I've been to neighborhood planning assembly meetings. I've posted stuff on Front Porch Forum last fall and the spring. We've done stuff on our Parks and Rec website. And, you don't reach everybody, but what I found is when I have conversations with individuals, when they see what we're doing and they understand what we're doing, they're on board. So,
is there one thing that you think is a common misconception about the project or that you wish the community understood more clearly?
Yeah, I think people see us taking down trees that have no outward signs of insect damage. They appear to have full canopies and they're perfectly healthy. And the reason that we're taking those trees down is once this insect gets into an area, it can move through very quickly, especially when the trees are in close proximity. And because of the sheer volume of ash trees throughout the city, we can't wait till they're dying. Ash trees, once they are killed by an emerald ash borer, become very brittle and very dangerous very quickly. All of these trees exist in high traffic areas where people park their cars. There's power lines, there's pedestrians, traffic moving back and forth. They're in our park spaces, so we really can't take that chance. We gotta be proactive and start removing them. So.